You're listening to Theater and College Hoops. I'm Subi alongside me. As always, Taylor Damel. We're brought to you by Belly Up Media. Go download, subscribe, rate, and review us on whichever device it is that you use. Your college hooper of the day is Seth Tuttle, former big man for the University of Northern Iowa. Yes, Seth Tuttle alongside Ben Jacobson. I remember him. He was much like Scotty James, who I dropped yesterday, a crucial component for those Panther teams there for UNI. So Seth Tuttle, he is your college hooper of the day. Check out the website at theaterandcollegehoops.com and make sure to follow us on Twitter at CBB Theater. You should also follow me at Subi232 to find out where the theat is, and make sure to follow Taylor at Taylor Damel. Let's open the curtains. TD, welcome back. We missed you yesterday as we were recording week one. Jerome, it's all right. I hope you listened. I was able to relay and announce some of your picks. I did make a quick, probably mean little comment questioning your fatherhood chops because you picked North Dakota State coming out of the Sun Belt or the Summit instead of Oral Roberts. So I'm a little worried for the kid based off your judgment skills.
Well, I mean, you can't just go chalk like the whole time. I mean, there are a number of
Oral Roberts is perfect in conference, though.
Well, yeah, which means they're due for a loss.
Are they? Okay.
I mean, and that I got to go with the Bison, just simply because of some family connections. No, I think a guy like Grant Nelson could take over a tournament. He's pretty good. Let's put it that way. Very, very dynamic. Pretty much leads the team in every single thing. What I liked about the first half of the Jerome picks this year, though, is there are really a handful of conferences that you could get such good value on. Like I'm sure you guys talked about, or obviously you guys talked about, teams like Gonzaga. Gonzaga as a 2 seed is quite literally you're never going to get better value than that.
Well, we had to get reminded by Surratt and the Crier that you don't get bonus points for picking the 2.
Oh shit.
Right. You only get bonus points.
Shit, you're right.
I don't think any of us did any real research except for the Crier. Hopefully he just picks the wrong team. But yeah, you don't get bonus points.
It really shows that I stopped listening to the episode and got out of my car at a certain point today. And you're right. I totally missed that. Well, if you did get bonus points for it too, there would be no more value than that. But remind me which conference has 3, 4, 5, and 6 seed all tied at 10 and 5 or 9 and 6 or something like that.
I forget.
I'd have to get back there and look.
It is. Yeah, I forget what mid-major.
And it's one of the picks we made yesterday. It's well, fuck, you might as well just pick the 6 seed because they're only two games back of the 1 seed. There's just so much value to be had there. But yeah, I mean the Jerome. It's the greatest time of year. I did in fact break out my This Is March shirt today as well. We'll be yesterday, I should say, we'll be routinely wearing that on a regular basis. On any day that Arizona doesn't have a game, I will be wearing my This Is March shirt. And I am 100% admitting to the fact that I'm only wearing that simply because I'm hoping that at whatever coffee shop I go to that morning, someone goes, "Oh, March Madness." And I'm literally only doing it for that. And I'm shamelessly admitting to that.
Yeah. Just breaking news here. I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention to much of what you just said right there. Penn State just upset and beat Northwestern on a buzzer beater last night, but we're recording this as that game was happening. I think that's 3 straight losses for Northwestern. They're in the tournament. They're safely in, but they're not playing like a team that is safely in the tournament.
That was at Northwestern too.
Yeah, that was in Evanston. Penn State is hanging on by a dear thread.
How do you lose to blow a 19-point lead to Rutgers and then you turn around and beat Northwestern on the road?
The Big Ten's insane, man. I mean, I know you were referencing another conference when you said all the teams that are bunched up with similar records. That's actually really the Big Ten. Look at the Big Ten. Everyone has 6 losses. A team like Indiana, SVP said it best. He said, I could see Indiana after getting blown out by Iowa. He said, I could see Indiana being as high as a 2 seed. I think that's a little bit too far of a stretch, or as low as a 9. I get the point that he's trying to make, though.
Yeah, I mean, that conference, I feel like the problem with that conference in the Big Ten is none of them are going going anywhere, though. I mean, I know that we're talking about conference tournaments here. There's a bunch of other teams I'd rather. I mean, Purdue's not exactly lighting the world on fire at this point. I mean, I think they are. What, 3 weeks ago, you would have said they're far and away for sure going to be a number 1 seed. That's not a for sure at all anymore in my estimation. So, I mean, yeah, Big Ten, good for them. Should be great theater in their conference tournament, which is really all we're looking for here in life. But I feel like they've come back to the pack. Indiana's just they're super unfortunate in terms of their consistency. I can tell you that my Iowa Hawkeyes are looking crispy, I think, as a good value pick heading into their conference tournament. I'm, spoiler alert for my Jerome pick for that conference title.
Yeah, why don't we start with Iowa and dive into the playbill? We got a lot to get to, but let's start with Iowa. They are scorching hot. Ever since Fran McCaffrey stared down the ref, I feel like, have scored 100 straight points without any sort of resistance. They made that furious comeback against Michigan State, which we did discuss on last episode. But then they just opened up a can of whoop ass in Bloomington and dominated from start to finish. It's Peyton Sandford, it's Philip Rebracha, it's the McCaffrey brothers. It's their offense is incredible right now. They are white hot.
Yeah, wire to wire. They hit a 3 on their first possession. Iowa did, and it was over, pretty much. I mean, that was it. They led the entire game from there. Stretched it out to, I think they led by a little more than what they won by at some point. Did they lead by 30 at one point, or maybe 25? Ended up winning by 22.
Sure. They whooped their ass, though.
I mean, yeah. How do you lose? I'm not saying I'm a big Iowa proponent here, right? But Iowa's not exactly world beaters either, and Indiana in a position to really move up, get a good seed, potentially 15th ranked team in the country, and then you get just mollywopped at home. Certainly not a good indicator for their future in my estimation. I mean, there's one-off, like, as much as I hate to lose at home, right? I mean, you can lose a one-off game at home here and there. You can't get smoked at home against a team that's like Iowa's going to be, what do you think? Like a 6 seed in the tournament, something like that.
Like I mean, 7.
Yeah, right. You can't get coming. You just can't get just smoked like that. The committee definitely is going to look at that and be like, oh, yeah, this team is definitely deserving of a top 4 seed, because that probably moved them down probably to a 5 or 6 line, maybe even just that loss alone. So my boy Chris Murray, as we know, dude, 26-7. Perkins with 23-10, 23-10 and 8. I mean, there are some NBA-like stat lines for this Iowa team. And even our boy, funny enough, Connor McCaffrey played 31 minutes, took 1 shot. That's wild as well. It's
just got cardio out.
How do you? Yeah, exactly. How do you pay? How does that happen for you? But yeah, Peyton Sandford, he had a nice game. We talked about him a lot. 16 points from him. These guys can get it from a lot of folks. The big question about them is, like I said last time, can they play enough defense in the tournament to go on a run? Because they certainly have enough offensive firepower to quite literally beat any team in the country. I mean, their offensive side of the ball, they can beat any team in the country. The problem is it's like, okay, you're going to score 90, but can you prevent the other team from scoring 91? That's literally the only question I have about Iowa at this point.
Yeah, and they're peaking at the exact right time. This is exactly when you want to be playing your best hoop. And maybe it's not the most balanced hoop, but it's certainly the most dangerous and lethal. And I think that's what we're seeing with Iowa. I'm going to push back on you about Indiana. This actually doesn't concern me a ton. I suppose it's not great when they're at home, but this was, in my opinion, a clear-cut case of being hungover from the Purdue win. They did get a little too big for their britches, and I think they thought that they were just going to steamroll Iowa basically saying, hey, we got the tough part out of the way. We went to West Lafayette. Now we just get to rest on our laurels and win a game easily at home against a team that probably should have lost to Michigan State at home. But instead, they came out incredibly flat-footed. I think it was a fine wake-up call. This might move Indiana, like you said, down a seed line or two, but I'm not terribly worried about them. They've shown enough for me. Their body of work has been enough for me for the Hoosiers. And by the way, I think it is worth taking a step back and crediting the great job Mike Woodson has done, because here we are talking about Indiana moving seed lines when just 2 years ago we were talking about how much of a dumpster fire and abomination and an embarrassment they were to the Blue Bloods. Here we are in year 2 under the Mike Woodson era. By the way, he's never missed the tournament. He's not going to miss it this year. Made it last year in the play-in game. Year 2, Mike Woodson has done an awesome job. And I think he needs to deserve or be recognized for the work that he's been doing in Bloomington.
Yeah, I guess what I'm saying about Indiana is our reference point of being from December 1st on, or however we want to phrase that, whereas, yeah, they might be, maybe I'm not that confident in them, but from where they're at compared to where they were several years ago, then for sure, yeah, they are definitely on the up and up. I hate to beat a dead horse here, but what's our problem with Indiana, Sub?
They can't went on the road, even though this was at home. TJD doesn't get up against.
They've got Trace Jackson Davis and.
Oh yeah, no one else is helping TJD. He showed up though.
26-13 and 4, and they lost by 22 at home. Yeah. That's
true.
You talk about. I'm not saying that you're incorrect, right? Like, I don't feel that strongly about Indiana one way or another, but it's like, if he scores 18 points in a tournament game, they're going to get fucking smacked. That's not recipe for success right there.
JHS needs to, and I think I said this a few weeks ago when we first brought it up. It's JHS who needs to be the most reliable, which is sad because he's a freshman. You figure you can get that from Miller Kopp, or you figure you can get that from Trey Galloway. It's got to be JHS because we've seen what he can do. He was a major part in winning that game in West Lafayette, which is probably the toughest road environment, maybe environment period, that Indiana is going to play all season. And then wasn't that special here against Iowa.
Kind of just a below average game. And this is a guy that's trending, of course, as we've noted before, as a lottery pick in the draft this next year. The talent's there, and it is tough to count on a freshman like this, but it's not like there aren't other freshmen in the country that are also going to be counted on in a similar manner. Obviously, in the words of John Calipari, these are just kids, Soup. They're just kids.
That's why I do feel bad putting it on JHS like this.
Well, yeah, but I mean, that's sure that there's definitely an argument for that. But if you want to be the man, then you got to be the man. There's just kind of no way around that.
No, I get that. But I'm also looking for a Miller Kopp, right? To say, hey, I've been there. I can help out. I'm supposed to be a marksman, a 3-point shooter. I'm supposed to extend the defense a little bit. And it's just a little up and down there.
I just really want more from Brace Thompson. Seeing
Brace Thompson too. Yeah.
A guy that looked like at the beginning of the year, like we referenced several episodes ago, a guy that at the beginning of the year to me looked like a guy that could really make that step as a leader on this team, and not just only a complimentary piece to Trace Jackson Davis. And unfortunately, he's been, I guess, less than even a complimentary piece at this point. Obviously, this team still with an injury here or there. I know Brace Thompson's missed a couple of games, but still, for him to just still only be averaging like 7 points a game at this point in the season, he's not really moving the needle as someone where it's like, oh yeah, well, who's Trace Jackson Davis gonna if he's getting double late, it's like, who's he gonna get it to? If Hood Shavino's going 14 from the floor, 4 of 14 from the floor, and Brace Thompson scoring 4 whole American points or whatever, it's like, just give me someone. And I know that this isn't a hot take. I know this isn't like deep analysis, but this is quite literally the glaringly obvious issue with this team is You need more. Trace Jackson Davis can't score 45% of your points every game and expect to have any success in the tournament, at least.
It's not even depth, it's just support. But again, this is about Iowa. They are scorching hot. The thing, though, you mentioned like a team like Purdue that isn't a world beater. And the thing with Big Ten teams recently, at least in the tournament, is that they continue to get upset. Ohio State loses to Oral Roberts a couple years ago as a 2. You got Purdue losing to St. Peter's inexplicably. And then you got this Iowa Hawkeyes team who everyone was buying last year. Everyone and their mothers had to the Final Four, and they lose to Richmond, which was a very shocking. So look, I do believe that Iowa's playing incredibly well right now, but it wouldn't surprise me if yet again one of these teams slips up in the first weekend.
Well, that's the McCaffrey coach team problem, because 2 weeks ago or a week ago, Iowa wasn't playing well. They had lost 2 in a row, and then they respond by scoring 202 points combined in their last 2 games, which is a great response. Don't get me wrong. The games that they scored 90 or 100 or whatever, they've won, but then you also only scored 52 points on the road at Wisconsin, a bubble team question mark maybe, who doesn't really have any next level type of talent out there. Chris Murray is certainly an NBA type player, someone who, even though he's not quite as good as his brother, still will get a look in my opinion, just because of his natural scoring ability here. But that's the problem with this team, is they're almost like reverse Tennessee. These guys go 3 game stretches of being good instead of 6 game stretches of being good. So that's why I like them maybe in a conference tournament setting. Hey, win me 3 or 4 games in a row. I mean, they ain't going to do shit in the tournament either. I mean, they have the firepower to maybe knock off if they do play a 2 seed or a 1 seed, kind of like a challenge, or a big upset, let's call it. It'll look like a big upset to those not in the know. To those in the know will know that they can put up 100 points, but they'll beat a 1 seed and then lose to a 9 seed or a 10 seed or something like that in the next game, simply because they don't have that type of consistency. But I do like them at a conference tournament setting, just simply because of that firepower against teams that they know. If they play a really good defensive team, or a team that can match them offensively in the big dance, that's going to be tough.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm willing to go even so far as to pick Iowa to win the Big Ten Conference, because I think it's so deep. That is your prerogative. I ain't going to fight you on that.
I'm just saying they have the firepower.
I know, I understand. I understand that, but like I don't see the consistency for Iowa. We'll see what happens in the NCAA tournament, though. Let's move on to some action from last night, though. Souley BOUM. He's been a revelation for the Musketeers all season, and he was amazing against Providence. Providence's home win streak finally snapped, but Souley BOUM was incredible. I think he had 30-plus points, 7 assists, 4 boards, something along those lines, and I had to dig this up, man. This was from last offseason. This is David Miller, assistant coach for Xavier, talking about Souley BOUM, and it is worth a listen. Let me just play it real quick. Here we go.
Souley BOUM, who's been at UTEP and USF, who's battled, you know what I mean, put up unbelievable numbers at UTEP for the past 3 years. I think he's one of the most underrated players in the country. A lot of people have never heard about him. I'm telling you, hopefully, you can bring this quote up at the end of the year. I think people are going to know Souley BOUM's name by the end of next season. I really do. I believe in him that much.
Yeah, man. We know Souley's name. Incredibly prophetic commentary there from David. Yeah, we know his name at this point, but awesome win for the Musketeers. And they're doing all this without Zach Fremantle. Marquette wins the Big East, but Xavier right there, Shaka and Sean and Xavier with an awesome win against Providence, leading the way with Souley.
I was leaning towards taking Providence in this game just simply because of their prowess at home. We know that they're good at the AMP there. Do they even call it the AMP? I keep calling it the AMP.
Yeah, they do.
I feel like that's what
Pryor
they
calls
it, right?
it the AMP. Yeah.
Okay, good. That's good for me. A crier is born. God, I love that guy when he's able to hop on with us.
Yeah.
But Souley BOUM. I mean, I'm so high on Xavier, and not even just because I'm a Sean Miller guy. I mean, I just think they have the right pieces in place obviously, and then you add on to the top that I am a Sean Miller guy, and he has the pedigree in the tournament, the experience to take a team to the Elite Eight.
Yeah,
Pause.
I mean, that's all you could say.
Pause.
Right.
Well, the crazy part is Souley BOUM is arguably the best point guard Sean Miller's coached for a year. I mean, there's an argument to be made there from a scoring perspective.
Maybe from a scoring perspective, but I'd even put
TJ McConnell is the best.
Yeah, Lions.
I would take Souley BOUM over Mark Lyons.
I don't know. Mark Lyons was awesome.
He was, but he's not putting up 33 on the road. And
Souley's been awesome.
And so, and why I'm so high on them is because that type of performance that we just saw is the type of performance that wins you games in this month that we're in right now. And there's no really way around it. Others say, like, if you got a guy that is like that, with the support that he's going to have, and I'm operating under the assumption that Fremantle is going to come back before the tournament in at least some kind of, contributing factor here, right? But if you have a point guard that can go out there and get you 33 in a pivotal road game, deep in conference play, and it's not like this is a one-off thing. He's proven that throughout the year that this is who he is. He's like the opposite of Baylor Shireman. Like Shireman came in and people were expecting him to like elevate his game, and he's actually been worse. Souley BOUM he's putting up. This is the best season he's had in the best competition he's ever played in, arguably. So he's really utilizing this opportunity to really advance his career just in general. But a guy like that, when you see a performance like that, especially this late in the year, that screams to me like this guy's ready for March. This guy's ready for a Big East tournament. Give me the grandest stage you can in college basketball. And it's hard for me to bet against these guys in that type of, in these weeks going ahead, just simply when you have a guy that can go out there and get you 33 and make these big shots and make these big plays.
The only issue is, and the only thing that I'm a little concerned about is the lack of experience. So Souley BOUM, once he goes to Madison Square Garden, this isn't going to be like whatever conference tournament UTEP has played in. It's not going to be the same as USF, but he seems like he's built and made for the big moment. Like we said, walked into Providence and dropped that performance.
Yeah, I'm not that. I don't know. To me, there's just some guys that like are experienced.
That's Souley though.
Right.
If we look ahead to a guy, and I really like the balance of this Xavier team, but it's pretty much the same team that Travis Steele had, and it does go to what a great job Sean Miller has done. But Colby Jones, is he ready to step up to the plate?
Sure.
Is Jack Nunge ready to step up to the plate? Is Zach Fremantle ready to step up? And when I say step up, I mean, can they step up knowing that the target is on their back? With the exception of Marquette, the target is on Xavier's back. And there's a lot of teams that are going to be looking for retribution. A team like Providence, a team like UConn, right? Some of these talented teams that are geared up. And I wouldn't necessarily say Madison Square Garden is a home arena for the Musketeers. That being said, I don't want to take anything away from this game, and I want to focus in on this game because Providence is damn near impossible to beat at home. They had it coming into last night, the longest home winning streak. And so that's what made this even more impressive because this game was kind of put away early. Providence made a bit of a run, a little bit of a stretch. And I was really impressed with Xavier's ability to handle and keep Bryce Hopkins in check. And their guards just shined like crazy. And again, leading the way was Souley BOUM, and that's who you need this time of year. And I think you hit the nail on the head, Taylor. This time of year, a guy that can go and get you 30. Not every team has that luxury. Not every team has a guy where you can just throw him the ball and say, please get me out of this shit situation. Xavier has that guy. They did struggle against the zone a little bit. I'd be curious to see, and that's been a Sean Miller thing in the past. No. It looked like Ed Cooley. Yeah. I like that. It looked like Ed Cooley got out of it for some reason. I don't know. But at the end of the day, this is a great win. Hang on a second. At the end of the day, that's just a great win for Xavier.
If I was an opposing coach, I'd only play exclusively. I'd call Jim Boeheim and be like, yo, give me like 3 tips on the zone because I'm playing that against every Sean Miller team.
Right.
Right. And honestly, I need to step back a little bit here because you brought him up and we didn't really talk about it. But Colby Jones went 10 of 11 and scored 29 points. So we're
It
not
was
just
awesome.
talking about Souley BOUM here. But then you look at Providence, all 5 of their starters scored 14 or more points. That's tough to do in college basketball. It's tough to do in the NBA sometimes, for all of your starters to score that many points. Other than the fact it was at Providence, I would feel, pretty confident about both of these teams in the tournament. And I actually do feel these are definitely 2 teams that in my bracket, whatever that may be, I feel very good about. I feel like they're just, I don't want to say that this is, foolproof, but they are battle tested in the Big East. This Providence team seems to play some of the most entertaining games we can find on the schedule, which is great. And I think that bodes well for March. If you're in these type of close games, they're just gritty. Both these teams are just gritty. They have their star. You got Hopkins, you got Souley BOUM, you've got stars. These guys are legitimate college basketball stars. I love maybe even both of these teams going forward. Feel like the sky's the limit for both of them. But why I feel maybe a little bit better about Xavier is simply because they're not even at full strength and they're still winning these games.
I totally agree. The Fremantle edition, it's going to be interesting to see how they respond, because we've seen plenty of times teams say to themselves and say to everyone, well, wait till we get this guy back. And they were 4-3 entering this game without Fremantle. It's not like they're actually playing that well without him, which is completely understandable. But to get this win without Fremantle, it's huge. And it solidifies them as the 2 seed right now, at least in the Big East tournament. And I am excited to see them solidify that front court. I can't imagine Fremantle is going to throw a wrench into their plans, and it's subtraction by addition sort of thing. I think Xavier just gets more dangerous when he's around.
Well, they're to a point where the conference tournament matters, but it kind of doesn't matter in the sense that, like, as if Fremantle can come back and be a part of the conference tournament, I'd rather lose a game getting Fremantle more time and get ready than win the conference tournament without him playing, because I don't think that it's a benefit to Xavier to just throw him into the big dance without him playing. I'd rather lose in the third, the semifinals of the Big East tournament trying to get Fremantle more time than win the conference tournament without him, I think. Just because I'd rather have him get his feet wet again, having a game or 2 or 3 under his belt, than just throwing him into the tournament and saying, hey, let's just see how this plays out. To me, that's not a good strategy of just saying, hey, let's see how it plays out. I'd rather, and I'm not saying they're going to lose these games. I'm saying if I had to choose, because obviously I don't feel that, strongly about winning conference tournament titles as an important factor into the tournament, at least in these big time conferences. Right. So I'd rather make sure that I got my guy back in there playing some basketball, giving me 20 to 25 or however many minutes he's going to be on, rather than just saying, okay, hey, now that we beat the shitty first team that we played in the first round, and that's the only time that Fremantle got, and then you're playing some high level team in the second round. To me, that's not a recipe for success as much as maybe losing a game or 2 early in the conference tournament, but you have Fremantle that gets some time. Am I off base, you think, in saying that, or
I don't. I mean, it's not a bad proposition. I see what you're saying. At the end of the day, the only thing I would push back on is, let's say if you do get Fremantle that 1 or 2 games in the Big East tournament, and then you lose, there's still some there's some dead time for him where he's got to wait until the NCAA tournament. And sure, you could say that he's got 1 or 2 games under his belt. I think the best possible case scenario for Xavier is to bring him back maybe in the Big East semifinals, and then win or like play the conference title game, and then you just go forward with that, and that way you can get all of that together. But I don't necessarily know. I don't think Sean Miller's really playing. These are young kids. We've said it before.
Just kids.
Like I get what you're saying, but man, Zach Fremantle, if you're not ready to go for NCAA tournament time, you may be rusty. Fair enough, but you do everything in your power to get ready, because that was do or die, man. That's
you're also not going to force it either, right? Yeah. Like that's the
Sean Miller wants to win the Big East tournament. I know that for a damn fact.
Can you imagine the big swing and dick Sean Miller would feel like he had if he came back the first year of being back in the Big East and was like, "Hey, welcome to the show, boys," and they win the conference tournament. I mean, I'm not saying it's the most important thing in the world by any means, but it's a little bit like, listen, the Sean Miller that you thought was going to come back and struggle or whatever, like that ain't happening.
Yeah. I don't know where Travis Steele is at these days, by the way, because I'm telling you, he's looking at the same roster doing all this. Kunkel, Nungy, and Fremantle, BOUM, obviously. But, we'll move on, though. Xavier.
Well, hold on.
Xavier's
It's got to be what Sean Miller looked back and thought about Arizona last year.
I mean, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, it's the same
That's
roster.
True.
It's just, it's just a turnover, I guess. That is
fresh face
sometimes. Yeah, right.
Sometimes you need a fresh face, but good for Xavier, great for Souley, BOUM. Let's stay in the Big East, though. Marquette winning outright. The reason I want to bring them up is because everyone and their mother was talking about Creighton preseason. Folks, after the Phil Knight Invitational, I don't even know if that was the exact one that UConn was in, but everyone was talking about UConn and how awesome they were. And they've been really good. All right. Creighton's been really good. Everyone talking about, can Providence repeat? Who's another Big East team with a narrative? I'm sure there's a bunch.
Nova.
Yeah, we picked Nova. Shoot. Thank you.
Geniuses here on this program.
Well, they're looking pretty good right now, but
they are actually.
Look, the point that I'm making, Taylor, is not a soul, not one single person even thought about Marquette, let alone pick them top 3. Nobody even cared about Marquette. Nobody cared about Tyler Kolek, who's going to win Big East Player of the Year. Nobody cared about Shaka Smart, who should win Big East Coach of the Year, potentially national. I still think it's Jerome Tang, by the way, but
still, yeah.
Shaka should be up there. Shaka should be up there. I mean, Marquette, man, outright. This is honestly, I think we're downplaying this, or it's not getting enough attention. What a job Marquette has done this year. What a great run they're on.
They're far and away the most underrated team in the country. They're the 6th ranked team in the country. This is the highest Marquette's been ranked since like JFK was president or some dumb stat like that. I mean, this is better than D Wade ever was at Marquette, better than the Jay Crowder teams at Marquette. And I loved both iterations of those Marquette teams there. And somehow this team is ranked higher. I'm not going to say necessarily better. We'll see how that plays out here as we come into March, but the highest ranked team since I can't even remember, but it's been in a significant amount of time. We certainly weren't alive the last time that Marquette is doing what they're doing currently. And I don't see the unfortunate part for Marquette is like Shaka Smart should probably is a tough word, but he really should have some serious consideration for National Coach of the Year. I mean,
I totally agree.
Bill Self has a real shot at it, and I think legitimately so. If Arizona hadn't lost to ASU last week, I think Tommy Lloyd actually was getting undervalued, just given the fact that they lost 3 starters. It's the same situation as Kansas. They lost 3 starters in the NBA, brought back.
Yeah, but Kansas has like 15 quad 1 wins.
Oh, no.
They're not in the same stratosphere. I never really thought about Lloyd.
Well, they're still, I'm just talking about just people that are not being talked about maybe as highly as they should have for,
fair enough,
National Coach of the Year candidates. Shaka Smart, I bet you 90% of people who are going to pick brackets this year have no idea that Shaka Smart is now the coach at Marquette. That goes to show you how crazy it is that these guys won the Big East outright. They're going to be they're a 2 seed, almost a lock for a 2 seed. I would think at this point, at worst. And sneaky have a shot for a 1 seed, which is completely like ridiculous to think about that. And I mean, you watch SportsCenter or any show. When's the last time you saw a Marquette highlight? Probably only yesterday is probably the only one that you can remember of Shaka Smart, celebrating and all those guys celebrating, winning the Big East title, because they just haven't been covered this year, really. I mean, even I think, have undercovered them in terms of like what they've been doing this year, because there just haven't been. There've been so many other storylines like a Souley BOUM and so on in the Big East, a Kyle Neptune, To talk about, oh, what about this? What about that? And as we've been talking about all the periphery of these teams, Marquette's just been like, oh, we'll just win all the games instead. We don't care if anyone's talking about us or not. We're just going to win all the games. And then all of a sudden we're here, March 2nd, 2023. And you're like, oh, Marquette is far and away the best team in the Big East. They won the conference. They're the favorites to win the conference tournament. And they're likely going to be at worst a 2 seed, no matter how the conference tournament plays out. It's wild. And then having the player of the year in the conference too.
Yeah,
you have the coach of the year and the player of the year in the conference, and nobody has given a single shit about them for
all
4
year.
months.
All year. Yeah. I think it's very impressive how workmanlike they are in their approach, because they just handle business. It's not sexy. It's not beautiful, but it should be. It should be considered that way. Tyler Kolek is one of the best passers in the entire country. He produces with points as well. Shaka Smart, everyone thinks of him as this energetic young guy. I think we still remember him from the VCU days, maybe even the Texas days, and he still has that fire. But Shaka is definitely a lot more refined, and he seems a little bit more mature, I guess. It's not supposed to be a pejorative to say he was immature in the past, but he just seems a little bit more grizzled and a little bit more experienced in some of the battles that he's gone through. And so now he comes to the Big East. I mean, dude, you want to talk about Sean Miller swinging his what? Shaka Smart, I think this is just year 2, year 3 at Marquette, and he's won this conference outright. I think it's incredibly impressive. And like I said, they don't do it in a sexy fashion, but they have a really balanced team. Omex Prosper is solid. They're led by Kolek. And I will say, though, I don't necessarily foresee them going to an Elite 8 or a Final 4, which is usually the expectation for a top 6 team, a number 2 seed in the tournament or a 3 seed in the tournament. I could actually see them getting knocked off maybe round of 32, Sweet 16, just because of this. They may be, the lights might be a little too bright. We'll see. I just don't know if they have the talent or the star power to really make a deep run. I think they might run up against a stronger team from another conference, but that shouldn't matter at all, because what Shaka has done in Milwaukee has been nothing short of remarkable this year, and they're going to return a decent amount of these players. Marquette set up for the long haul, which I think is the goal. Last point I'll make is the good folks of Milwaukee. They've been treated to some great basketball between the Bucks and the Golden Eagles.
Well, I think the real problem is they don't have any size. They're the 399th ranked rebounding team in the country. There aren't even that many like D1 teams, so I don't even know how you can be ranked that low at rebounding.
Yeah.
And their leading rebounder has, let me double check this, averages 5.9 rebounds a game. Oso Ighodaro, and he's 6'9", which isn't small, don't get me wrong, but that's your big, is a 6'9" who averages 5 rebounds a game. So you better make all of your shots, I guess, in the tournament, because the hopes of getting any rebounds are not there. That they're not great defensively. They're fine defensively. Obviously, the size has a lot to do with that as well. But that these Shaka Smart teams, I know that I'm hearkening back to that original run or two that VCU had, but he has shown a propensity to be able to take teams with this type of talent and this type of roster, both from a size and physicalities perspective, and lead them to tournament success. So we kind of, I think, I'm not saying here on this program, but just I think we as a general term in the country as college basketball folks, I think kind of, I don't want to say, wrote Shaka Smart off at Texas. I think it was more of like whatever, that was cute. That was fun. Shaka Smart. Yeah, he dove on the floor that one time in 2010 or 11, and that's great. But he's now done it at 3 places, right? Like, I think we're maybe undervaluing Shaka Smart as a coach as a wide general sense, because there's not that many coaches that can take 3 teams to the tournament, and with really no gap in between him getting there and having to build for 3 or 4 years, whatever. Yeah. This guy comes in and goes, So there's an argument for his longevity at institutions. I think that's a completely legitimate argument. Will any of his teams get better from here? But at the same time, the same reason that freshmen get better as sophomores, get better as juniors and seniors, Shaka Smart and coaches get better from mid-major. VCU is a mid-major, but was for sure a much deeper mid-major than they are now when Shaka Smart was there. Texas is a low-key, impossible job to succeed at in a lot of ways because you have the pressure of a high.
I agree there's pressure, but he probably could have won an NCAA tournament.
Okay. Yeah, sure. Okay. True. Yeah.
That's all I would
underperformed, say. But there's probably, it's a tougher job than people want to admit that it is.
I agree.
Because there's the pressure of like a Duke without ever they're the 43rd best basketball school in the country. And yet they have the highest budget and all of that type of stuff. Marquette is such a good position for him. I feel like it's a basketball school, but it's not like the jam-packed pressure filled. And clearly because they've gotten all the way to this point without having like the lights on them. And like you said, maybe the lights will get too bright come March, but they couldn't really be in a better position for future success than they are now, winning the Big East. An experienced, decade-plus long experienced coach with a lot of NCAA tournament experience, not necessarily wins, but a lot of experience. And then you've got a roster that is young. And if they can add some size in years come, then they'll be very good. I like this Marquette team. I unfortunately am like you though too. I might take a team like a Xavier if we're talking about Big East teams or Providence. But boy, the Big East has some teams I really like going forward in the tournament. I don't necessarily like Marquette as much as some other ones, but to me, it's not going to surprise me if they have a little more success than what the general public is going to expect coming into the tournament.
Well, I think the general public is probably going to put them as like a Final Four and Elite Eight team just based on the seed that's next to them. But I don't know if I see that. I don't know if I see that coming there with Marquette. But hometown kid for Shaka. He's from Milwaukee. We've talked about fit. We've talked about it specifically with Steve Alford, who's doing a really good job at Nevada, even though they may be on the bubble right now. But this is a great fit for Shaka Smart and Marquette. So they're leading and they won. They won the Big East. Good for them. Couple of other items. Bama and Auburn, they go to overtime. Alabama survives. I mean, Bama's incredible. They're in a very deep, tough team. They shoot so many threes. They play a fun brand of basketball. I just can't help but think that they're winning all of these games and they're squeaking out tough ones against their rivals, that this is going to come crashing down at some point, like in the Sweet 16. Like it's almost too good. They're almost too good this season. I know that's stupid, but this is how things work out sometimes in the NCAA. Gonzaga was so stupid good last year and they lost in the Sweet 16. I'm just terrified that if the threes aren't falling for Bama, they're going to be in some trouble. I'll put it this way. I'm going to be hesitant, or I may be finding reasons as to why I want to take Bama out of my Final Four right now. But they end up getting a great win against Auburn. Any quick thoughts from this Iron Bowl game?
My thoughts are more so about Auburn than they are about Alabama. This is a team we lauded not that many weeks ago about being a team that just does what it does, and just were kind of sneaking under the radar. Since then, they've pretty much lost 7 of their last 9 games. I'm way more concerned about like an Auburn than I am Alabama. Do you still feel?
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm talking about Bama's long-term goals. I don't know if Auburn's in the tournament or not. I think that's a fair question.
Which is wild because they were ranked when we were talking about them being, hey, this is team sneaky. Kiss of titch, right? This team was sneaky.
That's what it was, yeah.
And then they snuck 7 losses in since then, essentially. I don't know. I still feel pretty strongly about this Bama team. I really am kind of confused, I think would be the only word. Flummoxed, perhaps, would be another one to use. How this Brandon Miller situation is going to affect them. And I'm going to keep the hypotheticals down to a very, very light minimum here, but I feel like there's still another shoe to drop before this is all figured out in the next, it's going to take months and months and months to get through the trial and all that. I feel like there's still another shoe to drop that when it comes to the information about whatever happened with Darius Miles. and Brandon Miller and so on. That is slightly concerning to me because, as we know, the national media or informants, or how we want to phrase it now, they don't like to do things at times that are very conducive to success to whoever they're going to report about, right? So I could see a piece of something coming out 8 hours before their first tournament game, something like that. So that's way too deep into the hypotheticals already. I am a little bit concerned about that situation, just as a general sense. They have kind of been here before. Obviously, Brandon Miller has not. I still like them just simply because they're so deep still. Like, for them to lose a tournament game, that means that 7 of their 10 player rotation have to play badly. I'm not saying they're going to go to the Final Four or the national championship. They certainly have that as their ceiling, but I don't have them losing early. I think Elite Eight to me seems right for them.
And that's what I mean.
Okay. And then in the right situation, Brandon Miller certainly has the opportunity and the ability, as we've seen, to take over games. Before the game, he took over last week and scored 41. 41. He wasn't exactly shooting the ball lights out from 3, turned around and then did that and kind of proved any doubters, I don't want to say wrong, but kind of said, no, I'm still out here though. So when you have a guy like that, just like we talked about Souley, BOUM, you have a guy with that type of talent and ability. Brandon Miller is even light years ahead of BOUM. It's going to be tough for me to bet against you. That's what's tough for me is it's I just can't see a situation where someone else is going to outrun them unless they have a historically bad shooting night from 3, because they can get it from which happens.
That could happen.
It happens, but they're just so deep that if they're a type of team that 6 players could be having a bad game and still win because they have enough depth to cover that. So I'm less concerned with them as maybe you are, I think, at this point.
Well, that's fair, but
and concerned is
no, I got you. I would just say, I would just say I'm not gonna. I don't think I'm taking them to the Final Four because I've seen teams that have just bulldozed. Actually, Arizona teams is a perfect example. They just bulldoze and win 30 games in a season, and then they match up against someone incredibly difficult in the Elite Eight or the Sweet 16. And when you get to those one winner take all games, I don't know how Bama is going to match up. So we'll see about that. Auburn, I still think they're in somewhat comfortably, but they're playing with fire. I think they are. I mean, this wasn't a bad loss for Auburn, but Katie Johnson, it's like Alan Flanagan. This is sort of the end of the road of that golden era. In soccer, there's the golden era of of players. I think we're sort of coming to the end of that road where Bruce Pearl might have to reload a little bit on some of these Auburn players, because I think last year was the real last time I think we all viewed him as a serious threat with Walker Kessler and Jabari Smith, and they lost to Miami. So we'll see what happens with Auburn going forward. The only other game I want to just touch base on real quick before we get to very quick hitters, Boise State storming back all the way back against ranked San Diego State. One thing I took away from this game, Taylor, is Max Rice was amazing. Leon Rice's kid, Tyson Degenhart, love him. Roberto Bergerson, another shout out for friend of the program. But San Diego State didn't score for the final 5 minutes. And you want to talk kiss a titch. Literally last episode, I was proud of how well they've been playing on offense by San Diego State standards. Last 5 minutes, not a bucket. And you know what's so funny also, Taylor? You said, you know what? Sometimes the no field goals things over a course of time is fine if you're getting to the free throw line and hitting free throws. 0 points for the Aztecs. And Boise State, I think they should be in the NCAA tournament with that win.
Well, they have to be now. I mean, you beat the best team in your conference down the stretch. They were a bubble team, but I believe that before this game, they were on the right side of the bubble, correct?
Yeah.
They were on the inside track of the bubble. Now I feel like they have to be in, barring, some kind of crazy loss. And Boise State has Utah State to play, and Utah State is another bubble team. So you're not talking about Yeah, it's at Utah State too, so you're not necessarily talking about a bad loss if you lose that game. Certainly, you're in. They're in if they win, if they beat their other conference bubble team. If they win here, I think that's on Friday or Saturday. Maybe it's on Saturday against Utah State or at Utah State. This Boise State team has been sneaky all year. Max Rice is their top scorer. Marcus Shaver Jr. has performed well this year. They aren't a team that anyone is going to take far in the tournament. They're like the worst team in the country from an assist perspective, which is kind of crazy. They only average 11 assists per game, which is like kind of wildly low. You can accidentally average 11 assists a game in 40 minutes. There are players in the country by themselves who average 10, and they're averaging 11.
Kolek.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
I feel like Kolek could do that.
But they're a tough, and they grind out a lot of these games to the degree where I'm not going to take them far, but it's going to be a team that doesn't surprise me matchup related, that if they do sneak one in against a team that they shouldn't beat, I'd even say like a team like Iowa, a team that I'm very high on. This Boise State team has just has the propensity to kind of force teams into games that they don't want to play. And I could see that happening in the tournament where, yeah, I'm not taking them to the Elite Eight or anything like that, but they're sneaky tougher than I think what the general person is going to realize. They're well coached for sure. They've got, even though we've talked about them as being a young team this year, they were good last year too. So it's not like this is everybody's first foray into like the tournament or the conference tournaments or so on. So they only have 2 sons of a coach on the team. Because
who's the other one?
It's another Rice.
Oh, another Rice. That's right. Yeah. Sorry, that's got to suck for that kid. Sorry, I'm all about Max Rice and Tyson Degenhart. T. Deggy.
Yeah. I think they got enough to win a game or 2 in the tournament. That's all. But I'm just happy for how they performed. I'm usually anti Boise State, but they had an opportunity, or they were on the edge of saying, okay, hey, are we going to make the tournament? We're on the bubble, and you beat the best team in your conference, San Diego State, perpetually the best team in that conference year after year. That's and in a comeback fashion to hold them, scoreless for the last 5 minutes or so. That's a great sign of where this program is at. And it's almost to the point where, at least over the last couple of years, it's taken a long time to get there, but it's almost a plug and play rather than, we need the right player, or we need, talent. And that's the only way we're going to be successful. I think that they've got a good enough program now where they can just keep plugging players into this and keep it moving forward.
Yeah, I think Leon Rice is a wonderful coach. So great job from Boise State coming all the way back. And I think they finished the game on a 14-0 run. They actually played one of the most entertaining games of the tournament last year against Memphis, where they made a miraculous comeback, just fell short. But looking forward to seeing how that Mountain West tournament plays out. All right, Taylor, we're running up on some time. We're going to get – actually, you know what? Boise State helped you out on some of your bets from last week, which we'll get to next. But some very quick hitters that I want to talk about real quick before I get to you. Zakai Zeigler, injured, just brutal for the young man, brutal for the Vols. It seems like the Vols are snake bit. Their ceiling has been significantly lowered, but I still think they can maybe get to the second weekend. But this is just so brutal for Tennessee. That's the only word that keeps coming to mind. And I feel bad for Zeigler, who's one of the best stories in the SEC. Torn ACL, done for the season. It just sucks to see this late in the season. Obviously, it would be a season-ending injury regardless, but the kid is fired up, getting excited for March Madness. Credit to the Vols. They were able to pick up themselves by their bootstraps and beat a pretty somewhat surging Arkansas team at home handily. But the Zeigler injury just sucks. Taylor, your quick thoughts?
Well, against South Carolina, too, he had a great game. 13, maybe his best game of the year. Honestly, 13 points, 11 assists, as we just talked about, like a hell of a number of assists for a single player in a basketball game, especially a team of Tennessee's offensive lack of propensity, I guess. I am Yeah, I'm sad about it because we've been trying to really pump up Tennessee, I think, a lot this year. We've both been very high on Tennessee, defensive prowess, all that. But you lose the head of the snake in a lot of ways in Zakai Zeigler, and I, they just don't have enough offensive firepower to lose a guy like Zeigler.
Yeah.
It's just not there. So it's really unfortunate. It's definitely going to adjust how I take them in the tournament. They're going to have enough talent to shut down at least a team or two in the tournament. But once you get into those high level games, come the Sweet 16, it's going to be a little tough for me to take them further than that.
Yeah, and just losing a leader and everything that Ziegler's been through, I encourage everyone to Google what happened, I think, this past offseason. So just a huge hug for Zakai Zeigler. Some other quick notes. Caleb Grill out at Iowa State, kicked off the team. I don't know exactly what he did, but Caleb Grill, man, what the hell are you doing? Iowa State, it's a dumpster fire in Ames right now. They have lost, I think, 6 of their last 7, something along those lines. They just do not look very good whatsoever. So I don't know what's happening in Ames, but Caleb Grill out. A dog performing halftime at Louisville, Frisbee dog, took a shit right on the court. I don't know how you can encapsulate a season better than what that dog did. I will say I had a bone to pick with the trainer or whoever was leading it. Tried picking up the dog mid poop. Let the dog poop, man. Like,
it's over at that point. Like,
the poop just fell out. What the hell are you going to do? And let the dog poop in peace, please. I didn't like that whatsoever. Look, I'm not a PETA member over here or anything like that. If I was, I probably wouldn't have the dog performing for thousands of fans, but just let the dog do its business. But Louisville, that's just the perfect send off, I guess, for them. Matthew Mayer apparently was sick. He had a caffeine hangover. He had caffeine poisoning because he just chugged too many 5-hour energies after the Ohio State game. Insane. I don't know.
I read it as he drank 5 Monster energy drinks.
What did I say?
Is what my insiders said, aka just whatever ESPN said.
Well, what did I say?
5-hour energy.
Sorry, it was a Monster. It was Monster.
Is he just angling for an NIL deal?
It's not a bad idea. He kind of fits the mold. He looks like a Monster Energy type of guy.
Is this maybe the least shocking? If you look at him, this may be the least shocking story in college basketball this week.
Well, and I listened to the interview. He did not seem ashamed whatsoever, or bashful, or anything. I think he just went into Brad Underwood's office. He's like, "Yeah, man, I'm not feeling so good." And Brad's like, "Well, what happened?" Usually, you would try and hide it. I think he probably just said, "I chugged way too many Monster Energy drinks, Coach."
There's no chance that statement was taken seriously either. Every other player on the team is trying to come in like hiding that they're hungover, or they smoked 9 J's the night before or whatever. And this guy's like, yeah, man, just too much Monster Energy. And yeah, there's no chance that was taken seriously.
That's an NCAA champion, though. He's got the one thing that the rest of that staff, I would assume the staff, does not have, and that's a ring. So Matthew Mayer, man, I hope you're recovering from your caffeine poisoning or whatever it was. I can't imagine some of these kids during the Four Loco days. I want to ask. Oof. We need to identify some players during that time period, like 2008 through 2013, 14. See if they ever got their hands on some Four Locos and see how practice was the next day.
I think we witnessed a couple of these guys. One of your best friends, Krill Natiasco, probably Legend. Was heavy on the Four Locos at the Gateway pool party. A time or two. I won't
put him out on Front Street.
No, I'm not going to put you out on Front Street about what you were doing during that pool party. But I do know that Krill was probably a guy. His jazz hands were too shaky. Most of the time, that guy definitely was a caffeine guy. Let's put it that way.
That's a good way of putting it. Look, all I'll say is that it's a combination of being overserved and the Arizona sun. It'll make you do some odd things. Speaking of Arizona, the last bone I have to pick I'm looking at the schedule, man. All right. Arizona at UCLA. I'm talking to my wife. I'm like, we should go out for the game. Let's have fun. Go catch it. 10 p.m. tip, man. Eastern time. And I was on another program earlier today, and they asked me, why does the Pac-12 not get respect? I said, outside of the fact that the last national title came in 97, it's because these idiots don't produce their best product, the best rivalry on the West Coast, and 2 top 8 teams. 10 p.m. Eastern, Taylor. What are we doing?
Well, and then both like Arizona ASU games were at noon too. At this point, word on the street is that there's a 75% chance or higher that Arizona is going to get an offer from the Big 12 apparently after the season over.
Thank God.
And I couldn't, when this all first came, I'll try and keep this short because I know we're running out of time. But when this all came to fruition for the first, what are these conferences going to do? I was very pro, like, Pac-12 tradition, this, that, or the other. I couldn't have switched on this more than I have. I'm going to be extremely disappointed if Arizona is a Pac-12 member or Pac whatever the fuck here in 3 years. Give me the Big 12. Give me Kansas. Give me Baylor. Kansas, Arizona, McHale, Fogg, Allen. That rivalry to be will far supersede whatever Baylor Kansas's rivalry is. It would be one of the better experiences in the country for a college basketball fan to have those type of things going on. And I just don't see the Pac-12 at this point. What are they? They might as well be Live Golf at this point because they're like negotiating deals with the CW or whatever for their TV deals. The fact that they're seriously considering going to a completely 100% streaming route is death knell for your conference right there. What do we always say on this program? I'm not coming over to your house to watch a sporting event if you're streaming it. And now if you're the Pac-12 and all of your events are streaming, that's just ridiculous if you ask me. So give me Arizona to the Big 12, and I will never, ever, ever look back at the Pac-12 again because I don't give a shit. And I'm assuming you don't either because at this point, we'll actually get to watch like 2 p.m. games and 4 p.m. games on Saturdays, not, hey, here's two teams that are competing up until like 2 days ago for a 1 seed in the NCAA tournament playing at 10 p.m.
It's a joke, dude. It's a joke.
Ridiculous.
You get lumped in with like the circus freaks. You get lumped in with the Girls Gone Wild at 2 a.m. sort of commercials, right? That's what's
great commercials, though.
I know, yeah, that's a part of growing up. But those are the commercials that you're getting lumped in with, like infomercials that are playing. Okay, I'm not asking to be primetime every single night, but it's UCLA, Arizona. And you're going to schedule that. What an awful job promoting your product. It's such an embarrassment being part of the Pac-12. I want the hell out because the only thing that was stopping people or maybe in our minds was, well, that doesn't make sense if we went to the Big 12 or the Big 10. We got the LA schools going to the Big 10. None of it matters anymore geographically. Let's just get it done. God, that pissed me off. The thing that will make me happy, though, is recapping your bets here after this message.
Hey everyone, it's Ryan from No Credentials Required to talk to you about one of our newest partners at Belly Up Sports, SeatGeek. Yeah, live sports is great on television, but the feeling of being at the arena is a priceless experience. That's why our friends at SeatGeek are there to help you find the best tickets at the best prices. Not only can you get tickets to sporting events, we can also get tickets to concerts, comedy shows, musicals, and more. Search for your desired event now at SeatGeek.com, enter promo code BellyUpSports at checkout, and you save $20 off your first purchase. SeatGeek. Life's an event. We have the tickets.
19 and 22, shooting 46% from the field on the year, making a nice little comeback. Great week last week. Michigan State -3.5 against Nebraska. Needed a comeback. Got it done. It is January, February, Izzo. Boise State -1. Needed another comeback against SDSU. Got it the hell done. Kansas State -7.5 against Ohio. Only won by 7. Kent, excuse me, not Kansas State, but Kent State. Only won by 7. I'm sorry, man.
Have that half point. That's killed me. I think this is the 3rd or 4th occasion on the year that the half point, the hook, as the kids like to say, have killed me. So we're here though. We're in March, and we've got enough time to make sure we all make some money this year. We're certainly within range to get back to 500 and over 500. So, Sub, I say, let's do it. I think we should do that. So let's start with some teams that are on the bubble. One of them is the Michigan Wolverines. I don't think Michigan's good at all. And it is as what's the word that I'm trying to say? As fluctuating as Illinois has been this year in terms of their abilities. I'm taking Illinois over Michigan by 4.5. Illinois at home. I just don't think Michigan is very good. Is quite literally the only analysis I have about that. So we're rolling with that. This is going to come as a surprise to you, Sub. I think it's going to come as a surprise to you. We've got another team on the bubble in the same conference, the Big Ten, a conference we've talked about a lot on this program. Obviously,
we're
going with Wisconsin +4. Thank you.
That
Wisconsin
is shocking.
+4. Well, has Purdue been playing well on the road? No, they can't win on the road, apparently, at least not often. I'm not sure. This game was tough for me. The other tough part is now we've got games starting. As most of the people that are listening to this podcast tomorrow, games will already be happening at this point because we're conference tournament season. So there's a couple at noon and 1 p.m., 2 p.m. Eastern that I just didn't want to take because most people will not have even turned this podcast on, or a lot of people maybe would not have turned this podcast on even by that point tomorrow. So I'm trying to do some favors for the listeners out there.
Very kind.
It is a tough one though, because I feel like Purdue might win this game, but it's just going to be close to me. Wisconsin has a lot. Purdue doesn't have all that much to play for other than holding on to the 1 seed. Wisconsin has essentially everything to play for at this point. I know you could say the same thing about Michigan, but I just don't feel that highly about Michigan or Juwan Howard. I think Greg Gard is at least a little bit better of a coach, and I feel like he'll get his boys in line here, at least to keep this game close against Purdue. And then, Sub, I've been trying to avoid this for a lot of the year, but let's go with some home cooking here. Arizona by 1.5 at USC. Arizona doesn't really have a shot as a 1 seed anymore. They do need to win this game, though, to hang on to a 2 seed, I would say. Unfortunately, I think this is actually the biggest game, not for me, not for our personal standpoint, but I actually think this is the biggest game of the weekend for Arizona from a standing perspective. More so, they can lose at UCLA and nothing is going to change about their seed line, right? But you can't lose at USC too. Then that makes UCLA a must win, or you're now a 3 seed, and you're a 3 seed only, no matter what happens for the rest of the year. So this is a very, very big game for Arizona, and it's a very, very big game in my mind in terms of telling me what they're going to do in the tournament, how they're going to perform. Because, like I said, you can lose to future 1 seed UCLA on the road. I'm okay with that. Would I be disappointed if that happened? Yes, but I'm okay with that from a general standpoint. You can't overlook a USC in looking forward to a UCLA. So it's a huge game for Arizona in my mind, and I'm going with Arizona -1.5. I think they've got the talent. I think they've got the moxie, the chutzpah, so to speak, to get this done. I think Azuolas Tubelis really needs a kind of bounce back type of performance.
He's needed it for a while now.
To say, I am an All-American. I am going to lead this team on a deep tournament run. And I think they get it done at USC. So that's Arizona -1.5, Wisconsin +4, and Illinois -4.5.
We'll continue the winning streak here. Let's go 2-1 again, maybe even 3-0. Taylor, let's go ahead. Get on out of here now on some good things. What's yours?
So as much as I like to hate on this program, one of the 3 best college programs in college basketball history, Kansas is my good thing this week. Not only for winning their 9 millionth conference title, but in winning 2 nights ago. Good performance by Kansas, given that Grady Dick did not play well either. Also shows you how deep they can be too. Kansas won their 40th consecutive senior night, which means that if you're younger than 62 and you are a Kansas basketball player, you won your senior night, which is kind of a crazy thing to think about. Our parents' age, everybody has won their senior night and down and down. So that's really quite a crazy thing to think about in my mind, to have won 40 consecutive senior nights. And that's a full rotation of playing Baylor, playing I'm sure they've played everybody at that point during their senior night. A very impressive number for one of the most impressive coaches and one of the most impressive college basketball teams in the country. And at this point, maybe the number 1 overall seed in the tournament as it's currently progressing in Kansas.
I was listening to Lenardi, and him and SVP were talking about it. I'd be fine with Kansas being the number 1 overall. Their resume is insane. You want to talk about any team with wins that you think are great? It's nothing compared to Kansas still. 15 Q1 wins. They're just such a machine. It's amazing. It really is. My good thing, Maine Black Bears. The Maine Black Bears. I'm sorry to friend of the program, Coach Jared Grosso, but Maine pulls off the win against Bryant on a putback layup. And it was just, I mean, another beautiful representative of what March is about, of what March can be. So looking forward to that tournament as well. We'll see how it unfolds. Also, my Wagner pick is already out for the Northeastern Conference. Just terrible. So bad. I'm so sick of Wagner. But again, let me rein myself in. This is about Maine. The Black Bears getting a great win against a very talented team. Let's not forget, Brian has Doug Eater. They have Earl Timberlake. They have a good squad. Maine, I couldn't tell you one single player. I'd be hard pressed to find a person who could do that. But Maine with a great buzzer beating win. So hat tip to you, Maine. All right, T, let's go ahead, get on out of here. Enjoy the rest of the week. We're coming down the home stretch of the regular season, as Taylor had mentioned. First week of conference tournaments are going on. Wagner, goddamn you. But we'll catch you next time here on Theater and College Hoops.